On 20th November 1917, near Cambrai in northern France, a new kind of battlefield opened in minutes. The battle still matters because it showed how tanks, artillery, and surprise could reshape modern war. By late 1917, the Western Front had become a system of trenches, wire, shells, and exhaustion. Commanders on both sides were searching for a way to break the deadlock without another costly slaughter. Britain had spent years learning how to fight on the Somme and at Arras, while Germany held a long defensive line under constant strain. Cambrai became a test of whether careful planning could finally restore movement. The leaders faced intense pressure from governments, armies, and public opinion. Success promised relief and momentum. Failure could deepen fatigue, weaken confidence, and harden the war into another year of attrition. On the British side, planners looked for a quieter sector where tanks might surprise the defenders. On the German side, commanders relied on depth, reserves, and rapid response once an attack began. The armies were large, but their strength was uneven. Britain brought tanks, artillery, infantry, engineers, and cavalry in a tightly timed plan, while Germany depended on disciplined defenders and fast counterattacks. Logistics mattered as much as courage. Roads, rail lines, fuel, shells, food, and repair crews all had to function, because a tank attack could stall quickly if the rear areas failed. Morale was mixed on both sides. Some soldiers hoped a breakthrough would end the stalemate. Others expected that even a successful attack would soon harden into another struggle in the mud. The route to Cambrai ran through a landscape of farms, roads, canals, and low ridges. In 1917, those ordinary features became military obstacles, guiding movement and limiting visibility. The battlefield itself was deceptively flat, but shallow rises and village edges mattered enormously. In late November, cold rain and churned earth turned every track into a test of endurance. British planners aimed for surprise, concentration, and speed. They hoped tanks would crush wire, infantry would follow through the gaps, and artillery would keep the defenders disoriented long enough to advance. German planning leaned toward flexible defense. Rather than holding every yard rigidly, commanders expected to absorb the blow, then counterattack where the line looked weakest. At dawn on 20th November, the attack began with a carefully timed artillery program. The opening was meant to be controlled and quiet by the standards of the Western Front, yet it still shook the ground. The first hours brought real gains in several sectors. Tanks crossed wire and trenches, infantry followed, and some defenders were pushed back faster than many had thought possible in 1917. Yet the battle did not unfold evenly. Some machines broke down, some units lost direction, and the very success of the opening made coordination harder as the advance widened. The pressure point came where the attack met stronger resistance, and the terrain narrowed. Once the initial shock faded, German defenders and reserves began to close the gaps. Tanks were powerful, but they were not invincible. Mechanical failure, shell damage, and difficult ground meant that each vehicle was only one part of a larger and fragile system. German counterattacks gathered force during the day and into the following hours. Their goal was not only to stop the British advance, but to restore a continuous line before the breach widened. The fighting around key roads and villages became a contest of timing. Whoever arrived first at a junction, ridge, or bridge could shape the next several hours of the battle. By the end of the first day, the British had taken ground that had seemed unreachable in trench warfare. But the breakthrough remained incomplete, and the enemy line was far from broken. The next phase brought a slower, harsher struggle. As the weather worsened and the ground deepened into mud, the battle shifted from rapid movement to stubborn local fighting. Cavalry, long imagined as a force for exploitation, found little room to act. The battlefield's broken terrain and the speed of German reaction left almost no opportunity for a sweeping pursuit. The Germans then shifted from defense to recovery. Their counterstroke regained ground in places and reminded both armies that the front could still move in either direction. For the British, the battle became a lesson in how quickly success could narrow. An opening that looked decisive on paper could be contained by reserves, terrain, and fatigue. For the Germans, Cambrai showed the value of rapid adaptation. Their response helped prevent a deeper rupture, even though it came at the cost of heavy strain and disruption. The immediate aftermath was a battlefield of wrecked machines, abandoned positions, and exhausted men. What remained was not triumph or defeat in a simple sense, but a costly tactical lesson. Casualties and losses were significant on both sides, though exact totals vary by source and method. The broader significance lay in the proof that combined arms could achieve surprise, then struggle to hold it. In the years that followed, armies studied Cambrai closely. The battle influenced later ideas about coordination, timing, and the need to link armor, artillery, infantry, and engineers more tightly. Cambrai did not end trench warfare, but it helped shape the language of modern offensive planning. Later commanders saw both the promise of tanks and the limits of relying on any one weapon. Historians still debate how decisive the battle really was. Some emphasize the tactical surprise. Others stress that the gains were temporary and that the larger war remained unchanged. There is also debate about the role of tanks, artillery timing, and command decisions. Cambrai is often remembered as a breakthrough, but it is equally a study in how breakthroughs can be contained. The battle's legacy is therefore mixed. It offered a glimpse of future warfare, while also showing that technology alone could not replace logistics, reconnaissance, and resilient defense. Today, the land around Cambrai is peaceful farmland again, but the contours of the war remain in memory and in the ground. The quiet fields make the scale of the 1917 battle easier to imagine, not easier to forget. Visitors can still sense how close the battle was to ordinary life. Roads, canals, and open fields that now seem calm once carried armies, machines, and the hopes of two exhausted commands. Cambrai endures because it captures a turning point in military history without pretending to be a clean victory. It was an experiment in modern war, successful in part, limited in the end. Its lesson is sobering. Surprise can open a door, but only sustained coordination can keep it open. That truth, learned in the mud near Cambrai, still shapes how historians read the First World War.